Hello everyone, I am Dr. Huma Yaqub, and today we are going to delve into the topic of gender and literature. Basically, we will be seeing to what extent literature is able to reflect the complexities of gender identity and how society shapes our understanding of masculinity and femininity. Okay, today we are going to study these topics, that is gender, how it differs from sex, key terms related to gender, gender roles and stereotypes, why we need to study gender in literature, feminism theory and its models and criticisms, the three waves of feminism, the Indian perspective, and diaspora in literature, that is, migrating women. Now, to begin with, let me define the term gender. And so we come to this question of what is gender. Now, to clarify, gender and sex are two terms that we might use in our day-to-day conversation in place of the other, but they have different meanings. Sex refers to biological traits like chromosomes, your anatomy, etc., that are used to differentiate male from female. These are assigned at birth. On the contrary, gender is a construct made by society and culture. It molds our understanding of masculinity and femininity. You will see that gender is widely influenced by societal norms, cultural expectations, and through repeated performance. Here we have a quote by the very prominent French existential philosopher Simone de Beauvoir. She says, "One is not born but becomes a woman." Now, this statement challenges the notion of gender as a fixed biological category or a box in which you can put a person's identity, and instead highlights that there are social and cultural factors that may shape a person's gender. So over here, now you can see on the screen that I have taken few lines from the poem by Kamala Das that is titled as An Introduction. Now, this particular poem is dealing with how a woman is, and these particular lines, they are dealing with how a woman is required to conform to certain margins, and she's like assigned certain roles to play with. So over here, this poem goes like this, like these lines that I'm quoting from. "Dress in saris, be girl, be wife," they said. "Be embroiderer, be cook, be a quarreler with servants. Fit in, oh, belong," cried the categorizers. "Don't sit on walls or peep in through lace-draped windows. Be Emmy or be Kamala, or better still, be Madhavikutty. It is time to choose a name, a role." So here we see that how a woman in the conventional setup, she is required to belong to someone. That is, when she is small, of course, she has her father and the brothers to take care of her. So she belongs to them as if she is a property. And likewise, when she is grown up at a certain age, the society requires that she should get married. And that is how she is assigned different roles to play. And sometimes even she is expected to be frivolous, or to be very frivolous in her behavior. That is like she can even end up fighting or quarreling with the servants. Okay, that is the kind of expectations that the society has from a woman. So here we see that this poem or these lines, they are giving an example that perfectly encapsulates the pressures that a woman faces to conform to gendered roles given by the society. And we see that Kamala Das, she, the poet, she thinks that the woman is forced to stick to her feminine attire, which in the Indian context is a sari, and fulfill her so-called duties or roles of being a woman. Now, the next line I feel really hits home. Many of us have seen this happening around us. That is, a woman is, as I said, is reduced to being a quarreler with servants. The word walls and the phrase lace draped windows really highlights the amount of barriers that have been placed on the woman and how suffocated she feels. Then she says, "Be Emmy or be Kamala or be Madhavikutty." as if like to pick a persona and stick to it. So this is the society pressurizing the woman to resign herself to a gendered role. Now, over here, you see that we come to some basic terms that you might come across while studying gender in literature. The term feminine, it refers to characteristics traditionally associated with women. These traits often include gentleness, weakness, delicacy, or modesty. Now, these attributes are culturally constructed, and they can vary across different societies and historical periods. Similarly, the term masculine, it describes qualities typically associated with men. Now, these traits include strength, assertiveness, and a marked masculine appearance or manner. So you can see a sort of a binary that has been created between a man and a woman. So all the things which are having positive connotations, which are indicating strength and assertiveness, they are assigned to a man, and all those traits which are considered as weak or which are considered as negative, so in this binary they are assigned to a woman. So the next term that we will deal with is patriarchy. So patriarchy is basically a social system in which men they hold a disproportionate amount of power, and in patriarchal societies, men dominate in various spheres such as the economy, politics, and religion, often leading to systemic inequalities between genders. Now, the next term that I will discuss with that is relating to identity. That is how gender identity is how individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. Now, it is a deeply personal sense of being male, female, a blend of both or neither, and can correspond with or differ from the sex assigned at birth. The term gender performativity, that is the next term that we are dealing with, that is gender performativity. This was introduced by Judith Butler, an American philosopher and gender studies scholar, in her 1990 book Gender Trouble. She posits that gender is not an innate quality but rather a social construct. It is created and maintained through repeated actions, behaviors, and discourse. According to this theory, gender is something we perform, and this performance or this performativity is based on social expectations. Now, I move on to gender roles and stereotypes. So, throughout history in literature, you will find that there are certain gender roles that have become famous in literature, and there are certain stereotypes that have been created in these classical works. Okay, so over here I will be referring to the Odyssey, to the Canterbury Tales, and to this very famous play of Shakespeare, that is Macbeth. So these are some really interesting examples of how gender roles and stereotypes play out in literature. In Homer's The Odyssey, men are depicted as warriors and leaders, while women are often portrayed as loyal wives or temptresses. We have Odysseus, the protagonist, who is the ideal Greek hero. And being an ideal Greek hero, he is shown as brave, very shrewd, strong, and his journey is filled with battles and adventures. So, women, though, are often portrayed in roles that emphasize loyalty and domesticity. Penelope, that is Odysseus's wife, is the epitome of the loyal wife waiting faithfully for her husband's return for 20 years. On the other hand, most of the other characters, like Circe and Calypso, are depicted as temptresses, using their beauty to distract Odysseus from his journey. Now, the next work that I refer to is Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. Over there, the character of the wife of Bath, she challenges the traditional roles by being outspoken and independent. She is shown to be able to navigate in a male-dominated world, yet she is also depicted through the lens of stereotypes about women's sexuality and marital status. So, for example, the way this character is written, yes, we can say that yes, she is confident and independent, but then she's also shown to manipulate her husbands using her sexuality. So, you see that there is a dichotomy here, which is really interesting, which is one of the reasons why we study gender and literature. Then, similarly, in Shakespeare's tragic play, that is Macbeth, Lady Macbeth defies traditional female roles by being ambitious and manipulative. Uh, and I quote talk about there is this critic Christina Leon Alpha. She points out that Lady Macbeth presents, and I quote, parodic inversion of the ideal wife, unquote, because she gives Macbeth, and I quote, the image of himself he seeks, unquote. So, Lady Macbeth's role is deeply intertwined, you will find, with the violent and power hungry context of the play. While she appears to break traditional gender norms by being ambitious and manipulative, she still operates within a framework of the ideal wife who supports her husband's ambitions. However, her methods are more subversive and ruthless. While Macbeth's want of power is characteristic of his masculinity, Lady Macbeth's want of power is seen as deviousness. So that is how uh, like how something can be shown in a totally contrast. Okay, like how Macbeth is shown to be, like, of course he is the hero of the play, and his want of power is coming from his masculinity, but whereas Lady Macbeth, she is also desirous of having power and power for her husband as well. So this is shown as deviousness in the play. Now we move on to in the next slide I will discuss why we need to study gender in literature. Actually, in literature, you will find that there are many instances where there are harmful reinforcement of norms that you will find in literature. So you see that literature can really reinforce societal norms by depicting characters who conform to traditional gender roles, and this perpetuates stereotypes and limits the perceived possibilities for individuals based on their gender. Now there is this another like point that I need to discuss, that why we need to study gender in literature, and that is literature challenges stereotypes, gender stereotypes. So on the other hand, literature also has the power to challenge and deconstruct stereotypes by presenting complex, multifaceted characters. Authors can question and redefine social expectations, and like this can also inspire social change. Literature has the power to expose social injustices and bring about awareness and subsequent action for change. It provides a platform for marginalized and oppressed voices to be heard. Now we move on, like there is the need now to talk about feminism, what one understands by why this whole concept of feminism, why it arose. So while studying gender, it is very important to focus on feminism, as feminism advocates for equality of all, and it amplifies the voices of those who have been historically marginalized and silenced. So, feminism ensures that the experiences of women, particularly those from diverse backgrounds, are acknowledged and valued. Now, over here, you see on the screen some feminist theory models and criticisms. So, first of all, let me just talk about that. What are these models? Post-colonial feminism, you must have heard about intersectional feminism, diasporic feminism, feminist materialism, psychoanalytic feminism, and gynocriticism. Now, talking about first things first, that is post colonial feminism, it critiques both colonialism and mainstream feminism. It highlights how colonial history and its enduring effects shape the experiences and struggles of women in formerly colonized nations. Now, intersectional feminism recognizes the interconnected nature of various forms of oppression. including gender, race, class, nationality, and that they do not exist separate from each other. Uh, and then the next that I'll be discussing about diasporic feminism. Now, diasporic feminism addresses the unique experiences of diasporic women, the women who live outside their ancestral homelands. This theory explores their challenges, such as maintaining cultural identity while navigating new environments, and celebrates their resilience and contributions to both their home and host societies, while also highlighting the many issues they face throughout the journey. Now, moving on to feminist materialism. What does that do? Feminist materialism actually examines the relationship between gender and material conditions like economic and social status. It emphasizes how economic factors and social structures shape women's lives and opportunities. Then I move on to discuss about psychoanalytic feminism, which analyzes ways in which gender is constructed through unconscious processes and societal expectations. Gynocriticism focuses on creating a literary framework that centers around women's experiences, voices, and perspectives. That is like how women can really contribute as a writer. So she is the one who is writing history, she is the one who is giving the literary framework. Okay, so that is why it centers, as I said, around women's experiences, and it voices their desires, their perception, so it is totally from her perspective. And this term gynocriticism, this was coined by Elaine Showalter in her essay Toward a Feminist Poetics. Now, in the last slide, we particularly discussed about gynocriticism and how Elaine Showalter came up with this idea of a woman being the writer. So, of course, we come to this debate that is women written by men. Of course, as has been done traditionally, of course, when there were not enough women writers who were writing about women. So, there is this like dichotomy between women written by men versus women written by women. So, women written by men versus by women. Here, I would begin with by quoting this a quote from Helen Cizou, a French writer and playwright. She says, "Woman must write woman, and man man. Her goal here was to inspire women to write to express themselves." So, women written by men, like if we talk about the older times when of course it is mostly the men who were writing about women. So this often described in terms of their physical appearance and appeal. That is, women were described in terms of their physical appearance and appeal. The portrayal of women was more so using gender stereotypes, that they were, as I already discussed, that they were portrayed as passive, they were portrayed as weak, submissive, etc. They were portrayed as lacking depth, and maybe they were defined by their relationship to men. I would give the example that despite being the main female character in this novel, like you will find that how in Great Gatsby, Daisy Buchanan's character serves as an object of desire and a catalyst for the male protagonist's action rather than as a fully developed individual. On the contrary, when you talk about women written by women, there are female characters are often depicted as multidimensional, and focus is often on their inner lives and diverse experiences. They are depicted with realistic flaws and strengths, making them more relatable and authentic. Now, before moving further, I would like to say that like how the seeds of this feminist movement were laid down by two very famous individuals, and one is Mary Wollstonecraft and the other one is J.S. Mill. Okay, so here you see on the screen there are these two people who, as I said, they planted the seeds for feminist movements, and whose ideas greatly contributed to the feminist movements. Mary Wollstonecraft was an English writer who strongly supported equal opportunities for women in social and educational spheres in her book, that is A Vindication of the Rights of Women. So, like how she understood this point that women also needed rational education. Like previous to this point, women were often considered, they were not considered as rational beings, and it was considered that how education is not something very important for them. So it was how Mary Wollstonecraft, she emphasized this point that how women, it is their right, their right to assert themselves, to get right education, because she's having the responsibility and various roles to play around. And of course, then I move on to discuss about J.S. Mill, subjection of women, this particular text of Mill, and how Mill also played a very important role in contesting the rights of women, and how he was also a very foremost role that he played in asking for the right to vote for women. Okay, because he was of the view that women, they constitute the half of the population of any civilization. So if women are lacking behind, if they are not progressing, if they are not given the rights that are necessary for them, what happens is that the half of the people will remain uncivilized. So that means that we cannot claim for the progress of any civilization if we are not letting our women progress in life. So that is why J.S. Mill's book and his like contestations, they are really very important in the enabling women to get their rights. Now, let me move on to the various feminist movements in history. That is, first of all, I would like to mention that there are significant three waves that we often talk about, although of late there is the fourth wave which is also being talked about. But talking about the three of initial three waves which are very important in the feminist movement. Okay, so let me talk about the first wave, okay, which began around the late 19th century and till early 20th century. And its focus was on the legal rights, particularly women's suffrage and property rights. Okay, that was one thing that it particularly emphasized on. Then there was, of course, there was this important movements that were there around that time, and important episodes, we can say. One was the Seneca Falls Convention. Okay, so like how it also this was the first women's right convention in the US. So this is also very, very important that you can see the first women's rights convention in the US, where the Declaration of Sentiments was presented by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott. And then, of course, there was the Declaration of Sentiments inspired by Declaration of Independence. And then the 19th Amendment, which granted American women the right to vote. So these were the some very significant and noteworthy like movements and episodes that happened in during the history of women getting their rights. Now, I would like to discuss some significant works from the first wave of feminism. And these are the two important authors that I've mentioned over here. One is Virginia Woolf, and the other one is Charlotte Perkin Gilman. Now, like talking about Virginia Woolf and her work, A Room of One's Own. The Room of One's Own is a very significant text because it made a case for how women need financial independence and personal space to create literature. And a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write fiction. That is what Virginia Woolf wrote, and I'm quoting from her. And this work examines the societal constraints that have historically limited women's opportunities. So, like in this particular text, A Room of One's Own, Virginia Woolf is also mentioning about, she's talking about a fictional character, that is Judith Shakespeare. That is, like if we assume that Shakespeare ever had a sister, and like if this sister was equally talented like Shakespeare, and she also wanted to make a mark in the world, then would she have got the kind of recognition that Shakespeare had? So this is the question, and this is the analysis that Virginia Woolf takes up to make us understand that how women have not got the same rights, and that is why we don't find great women writers in the time of Shakespeare. So she says that if this Judith Shakespeare would also run away from home like Shakespeare did, would have stood outside the theater, and then finally how this girl would have been exploited by the director, by other people, and finally she would have had a tragic end. Okay, this is what Virginia Woolf makes a point in this particular text. Now, so that is why we see that how she's making this point, that how women need, by saying that A Room of One's Own, she wants to indicate that of course women need to have time of their own, their place of their own. That is only then they can really indulge in any creative activity. So this is one of the significant assertions that were observed by Virginia Woolf, you can say. Now, talking about this other text that I have mentioned, that is the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. This is about a woman who has been prescribed a rest cure instead of proper treatment for her postpartum depression, and which eventually drives her to insanity. That is how that was the convention of those times. She being from an aristocratic family, so like how the husband puts her into a mansion, and then she's locked in a room which is having a yellow wallpaper. So finally she is driven to madness because she is this rest cure that was prescribed to her, where she was not really having any company, she was not really going outdoors. So this was something which was in opposition, which a man, the maybe privileges that men had during those times, that how they might have gone out, really enjoyed their life, and of course they would have like their blues might have been taken care of. But over here, the woman, because she was suffering from this postpartum depression, and how she was in altogether different manner how she was treated, and this was the reason that she was driven to madness.